John the Hero, written by Chai and Era Benabepu.
Translated and pictures by 2019 Sonsa Elementary School Grade 6.
This picture book is made by 2019 Sonsa Elementary School Grade 6 students in Seoul, South Korea, with the support of the NGO Seeds of Empowerment, which was founded by Dr. Paul Kim of Stanford University. The story John the Hero is from Ghana. We translated the story into Korean and made a picture book with it. Perhaps the work we have done with this project is not perfect, but we have put our hearts and souls into it. We hope you can feel the warmth of our hearts when you read and listen to the story. All the students in the 6th grade participated in this project, and all of their voices were included in this audio. Let's get started.
In a faraway town, there lived a gentle little boy named John. His mother died during childbirth and his father was ill, but did not have enough money to take care of him. So he sent John to live in an orphanage called the Chesterfield Boys' Home.
The place was terribly horrible and dingy.
The food that was served at meal sometimes had flies and worms in it.
All the boy dreamt of being adopted by rich parents. Every night before he went to bed, John prayed to God that he would be adopted very soon.
One cold winter day, 2 of his housemates were adopted by a rich couple. Later, a few other boys also got adopted and left the orphanage.
John felt very sad and lost hope in the fact that he was ever going to be adopted. Whenever someone else was chosen for adoption, they turned into weeks and weeks turned into months.
And John kept praying to God each night. However, things became unbearable for him, and this made him doubt the fact that God could hear his prayers.
Night after night, he went to bed thinking of how he could escape from the orphanage.
Anytime he tried one of the plans he came up with, the plan either backfired, or one of the younger children coincidentally woke up and told the main caretaker, Mr. Earl Chesterfield.
Mr. Chesterfield was so mean that the children had nicknamed him Mr. Scrooge.
Mr. Scrooge usually locked up any child who attempted to run away in the attic, and did not give them food and water for a day. The boys really suffered in the orphanage. Many cried themselves to sleep while wishing for a better life.
Every Sunday, Reverend Wesley and his wife came to share the gospel with the boys in the orphanage. Everyone loved Reverend Wesley because he genuinely loved the boys.
His wife, Mrs. Wesley, was the most charming woman. She was plump with rosy cheeks and would bring the boys freshly baked cookies and an apple pie whenever she came by the orphanage.
Everyone loved Sundays because they got fed spiritually with the Word of God and got fed physically with Mrs. Wesley's yummy goodies. Services were meant to be from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., but Reverend Wesley and his wife loved the boys so much that they would say till supper time at 6 p.m. Fortunately, Mr. Scrooge didn't care much, so he was not around on Sundays.
To witness the joyous laughter and songs of the children during their time with Reverend and Mrs. Wesley.
Reverend Wesley was a good preacher whose messages inspired hope and courage.
He could tell good stories that made the boys happy. The story of David and Goliath was the boys' favorite story.
One Sunday, he preached on how Jesus saved the world. This story left John thinking.
He asked himself, how can I be like Jesus? How can I save my brothers in this orphanage?
He imagined growing up, being rich and buying the orphanage and transforming it into a boys' school so the boys could have a decent education with some nice warm food.
If Jesus saved the world, then I can save my brothers too, he said to himself. How can a gentle 10-year-old boy save about 60 boys from the wicked hands of Mr. Scrooge? John thought to himself.
John went on his knees, prayed to God, saying, God, you sent Jesus to save the world. Please use me to save this orphanage. John was a quiet boy, but he was a natural leader who really cared for all the boys in the orphanage. Those younger than some of the boys, they all looked up to gentle John.
One day, an idea dawned on him. John realized he can't save the boys until he leaves the orphanage. He asked himself, how can I get out? How do I escape? However, the thought of being locked up in the attic without food or water scared him. He thought of who he could ask to adopt him. He pondered over it a while, but he could think of no one.
Finally, he thought of Reverend Wesley and his wife,
And said to himself, I will ask them to adopt me.
So following Sunday, John went to Reverend Wesley and asked him to adopt him. He said to him,
Reverend, please adopt me, and I will work hard and buy the Chesterfield Boys' Home and call it the Wesley Boys' School.
After hearing John's request, Reverend and Mrs. Wesley had sleepless nights.
They were impressed with young John's dream and ambitions to make the other children's lives better.
They decided to adopt John, as they had no child themselves.
John moved in with the Wesleys. He was enrolled in a good school.
Because he was intelligent, he excelled in all subjects, especially English, mathematics, and science.
Life became blissful and comfortable for John. He lived in a modest house. He ate the best of meals. His new parents loved him, and he had made new friends in his new school.
Life was good for John. However, John was unhappy whenever he thought of the pain and hunger his friends in the orphanage had to endure. He became sad.
Whenever he sat down to eat a nice meal, he became sad because he wished he could share his meal with his friends.
The pain and sadness he felt was so much that he asked Mrs. Wesley
if she could send the boys some food on other days apart from Sundays.
One day, John told his friends about the miserable life in the orphanage.
The children's heart broke and they all decided to come together and save the boys.
The next Sunday was a red letter day for the orphans.
The Wesley family and the children visited the Chesterfield orphanage. They brought clothes, food, bags, and toys.
There was so much joy and excitement as the children made friends and played together.
One day, while the mayor of the city, Mr. Daly, was visiting John's school, he told himself, "This is the best time to save my friends."
I will catch the mayor's attention and report Mr. Scrooge. And that is exactly what John did.
When he had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Daly, John told him about his plan to save his friends in the orphanage.
He also told Mr. Daly about Mr. Scrooge and how he was treating the orphans. Mr. Daly was shocked to hear this and promised to investigate the matter immediately. Mr. Daly kept his promise and sent an investigative team,
disguised as janitors, to go and assess the orphanage.
They came back with very alarming reports. Mr. Scrooge's behavior was very disturbing. The children were malnourished and were not being educated.
The mayor took action and Mr. Scrooge was imprisoned for a long time.
Mr. Scrooge's treatment of the poor orphans went viral on social media within a few hours of his sentencing.
The mayor and John, with the support of Mr. and Mrs. Wesley, helped to raise funds for the orphans.
John was so fulfilled that they had managed to raise enough money to buy the orphanage and converted it to a boys' school.
John became popular and was celebrated in the city.
The boys chanted, "John, our hero, John, our hero, John, our hero." When they heard the good news, they were excited. John had saved them from the wicked hands of Mr. Scrooge.
John was proud of himself.
He had achieved his goals of helping his friends.
All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them.
Thank you for listening. Seeds of Empowerment is hosting the 1001 Stories project to give dreams and hopes to children all around the world. This is a project to make and distribute picture books with children's real stories of their lives.